Good afternoon. My name is Jami Welch, and this afternoon I'm going to be um, sharing some research that I recently conducted for my course, EDSE 7155 at Columbus State University. This was a action research project where I completed some research um, on these questions. So my research questions were to understand, does technology-based instruction lead to greater student engagement, and does student achievement differ between technology um, a technology-led instruction versus a traditional instruction where it's teacher-led, and then all of the practice will take place in the classroom using pencil and paper. So my main question was, how does instruction based on technology versus based on teacher and students and their relationships and a connection between the two, how does that either one of those instruction models um, affect or influence engagement, and then how does it influence or affect achievement? And so I reviewed the current literature, which suggested, for the most part, that technology will enhance problem solving. Tools actually, when used in real time, so with immediate feedback, like the one that I used for this research, increases accuracy and actually increases engagement. And that tech supports visualization and motivation. So using technology should in both for all three of those first points, increase engagement, increase motivation, and then in every single one of these studies, personalized learning programs and technology can actually improve performance. However, the literature was unanimous in this, that it can limit collaboration, but it's not necessarily the use of technology, but the thoughtful use of technology, which made me think maybe it truly is how the teacher uses technology and not the technology itself. So I decided to take this to my own classroom and see how technology versus a teacher led instruction influenced my students' learning. Um, and their achievement and motivation for engagement in the lesson. So, the setting for this research was Marian County Middle School, and specifically in a college readiness math class. This class allowed for me to actually include students from ages 10th grade to 12th grade. And we did a 2-week comparison of the two instructional approaches. We did have different objectives for each of those weeks, simply because I needed to continue to teach my students what they needed to learn. So the first objective was a distance and midpoint, just calculating the distance and midpoint and then applying that. And then the second objective was area and perimeter and applying that as well. So the first objective, we used IXL, which is a great technology-based platform. It's very The way that I used it for this study was very students were given the skills that they needed to learn, the standards you could say, and they were allowed to assess their knowledge. And then if they did not understand it, they themselves had to decide to click on, watch a video, or read a lesson. Otherwise, they had to ask for help from the teacher or ask for help from a student, or the teacher had to see that they were struggling and then go and help them. So it was very much self-directed. The traditional approach for Object 2, I engage students in a Nearpod presentation. So it's not just a presentation, but the students are actually working while we're presenting, and I can see their work in real time. So it did have a little technology. However, the teacher was in control of every single bit of technology that the students saw and when they saw that technology. Um, it was more of a lecture type setting, and then students actually did their own practice on their own pencil and paper after that. So the two data sources that were used for engagement, we had a survey after each lesson that students completed, and then for each of the objectives, students completed an assessment as well. So for the first objective, that assessment was on IXL. For the second objective, that assessment was pencil and paper. So the analysis, results analysis really did not follow what I found in my review of literature. I found that the traditional instruction actually had a higher achievement and engagement as well. So both averages were higher during the traditional instruction, which leads me to really and truly, I'm not sure that it's the technology here or if it was the way that the technology was used as such a self-guided technology. If there had been more guidance from the teacher, we may have seen higher achievement, possibly higher engagement as well. The variability was greater in the technology-based lesson as well, showing that there were some students who, when it comes to being motivated on their own and working through that technology-based lesson, it was just not happening for them. There was a positive correlation between the IXL and the teacher-led scores. So if students were going to do well on a teacher-led instruction, it seems that they were going to do well in IXL as well. So then I looked at growth, and it looks like, so I looked at growth from IXL to the traditional instruction to see was there growth, and there actually was. But I did look at the differences in my motivated learners versus my students who were not quite as motivated, and the growth actually favored motivated learners as well. So if a student was maybe a lower achiever, a struggling student, their IXL scores were pretty low. So they're showing that they really needed more of that teacher-guided instruction. And that's where I saw the highest growth, was my lower achievers but highly motivated. In my lower achievers who are also lower motivated, they did actually have higher scores when engaged in traditional instruction as well. As I reflect on this, though, I did see that I had one student who is she tends to be a lower achiever, but she is highly motivated, wants to do really well. And so I saw that technology was great for her. It gave her instant feedback and supported student autonomy in that she was able to, I saw her at one point watching videos and learning through the lessons, trying to improve her IXL skill score on her own. So the instant feedback was really great for her. At one point she said, "Oh, I got it right. I just didn't round correctly." So she was able to identify her own mistakes. However, the traditional instruction definitely promoted stronger participation. That was seen in observations, my observations, but also in those student engagements. There were complaints, no matter what format. And so that may just let me know that its task difficulty may matter more than it being technology or being pencil and paper. But it also, I think, speaks to the class as to their motivation in general. It may even speak to the fact that this task was more, for both objectives, I approached them on a more skill-based a lesson than a task-based or real-world-based scenario. And I think that more so than technology or it being a teacher-led lesson or maybe the old school type lesson, I think that would have made a bigger difference in both achievement and motivation if I had taken both of those objectives and made them more real world, and giving students something to be able to connect that learning to. So I would suggest going forward, begin with a brief teacher-led demonstration, but maybe follow with some independent practice or however that works in the classroom. But one or the other is not necessarily better. It's about how you incorporate technology in the classroom and that you keep a good balance. And after further reflection, it's more about relating the learning to the students and not how we deliver it to them, whether it's technology or whether it's just through a lecture and pen and paper. It's about relating what they're learning and that students can see some benefit, that they can see some reason for why they're learning this. And that's what gets them motivated.